What's up, my fellow wrestling fans? Thanks for making it back to Just the Worst Wrestling Podcast. This is episode number 6, and I'm your host, Billy Donnelly, who you can find over at thisisinfamous.com, joeblow.com, and of course here at Just the Worst Podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time to stream, download, however it is that you got to this particular show. We greatly appreciate it, and as a result, once again, delivering to you another fantastic episode. Going to be joined a little bit later on the program with former TNA wrestler Chad Gunner Lail, who is the star of a brand new movie that you can catch right now on all digital platforms as well as Blu-ray and DVD. It is called Navy SEALs vs. Zombies. And that should tell you about all you need to know. Chad Gunner Lail will be here a little bit later in the show, talk about his history and his career with professional wrestling, as well as to talk about the movie. So, really interesting conversation to have with him. Got into TNA, the ups and the downs, his fandom for wrestling. Really interesting conversation. So you want to just hold on tight and wait for that one, because it is going to be fantastic. I sound like Donald Trump. It's going to be huge. Going to be fantastic. No, it's a good interview. So make sure you sit tight for that one. I think you'll learn a lot, and maybe change your perspective on TNA just a little bit if you're one of those who've been hating for quite some time. Really interesting piece of information I wanted to share with you as we head into this week, which is kind of the payoff week. The go-home week, heading into the latest WWE pay-per-view. Are we still calling them pay-per-views, or are we just calling them like network specials now? What is the correct terminology for us to use here as we move forward? Because they're not really pay-per-views. Everything's on the network. I don't even know if any cable companies are still carrying these at this point. So to call them pay-per-views, I guess it's just habit, so we'll stick with it for now, but they're not really pay-per-views. There's something else at this point in time. So, this is the go-home week for the WWE's latest pay-per-view special, which is Hell in the Cell. And interestingly enough, I have made it a point to watch Raw on a weekly basis every single week, which would be what a weekly basis is, but every single week for the foreseeable past, if that's the thing, in recent history, to make sure I know what's going on, make sure I'm following the product for better or worse. And not just read about it, but to see it, to witness it, to see how it plays, to see how the crowd reacts, to see how the stories are developing, to see how they are moving forth with these characters, to see if it is watchable, if it's something to get excited about, to see if it is something that hardcore fans should continue to be hardcore about, or if it's just gonna be, or if it's just watching out of obligation. Is it just watching because you've always watched? Is it just watching out of habit? Is it just watching to feed the wrestling addiction? And not necessarily because you want to, but because you feel like you need to, you feel like you have to, you feel like you have no other choice. And, or to bitch about it, to hate watch it, to watch just so as it's happening, after it's over, you have the knowledge, the base of information to be able to come back and complain about it. To say, oh, well, they did this wrong, and oh, they did that wrong, and oh, I don't like this, and oh, I don't like that. And oh, I would have done this differently, and I wish this guy was being pushed, and I wish this guy wasn't being buried. the typical kind of IWC fan speak. The smart mark expert talk. And as somebody with a podcast, as somebody who's written about it, I know people in the press. We don't claim to be experts. We're not experts by any means. But I think there's a difference between watching and critiquing what you see than watching and complaining about what you see. Critiquing means you look at it and you see the good and the bad and you lay it out in a reasoned argument. But once again, it's still one person's opinion. It doesn't mean any of us are right. It doesn't mean any of us are wrong. It's just we're taking what we have come to know about professional wrestling or sports entertainment or whatever it is that you want to talk about, and putting that into a critique. The same way that I would do for a movie or a television show or a book or a music album. So I think there's, and that doesn't mean everybody can. Everybody does. Everybody has their own opinion. I just think there's good and bad ways to go about expressing it in a way for people to actually take your opinion seriously and not as just sort of a raving lunatic fan speaking entirely from emotion and without a rational point of view to get into it. So I've been watching and trying to make sure that I've been able to see it in order to have kind of a sound and solid perspective to be able to offer you some type of analysis, to be able to break these things down to you. And once again, I'm not a wrestler. I just know what it does for me as a fan, which is the other side of the coin. So, sometimes wrestlers can say, like, well, until you've stepped in the ring, which is a valid point of view. But as an audience member, I know what connects with me. I know what story is engaging me. The same thing that, like, I don't need to make a movie to have to critique that. I just know what hits me, what gets at my gut. And this week, in the go home towards Hell in a Cell, I made the choice to not watch Monday Night Raw. I elected to step away because it wasn't doing me any good. I found myself more aggravated and irritated and angered and bothered by what I had seen in the previous months on Monday Night Raw with what felt like haphazard storytelling, wild, indirect, creative directions, just a product that seemed to be kind of all over the place with no clear vision where it wanted to go from one week to the next or across 3 hours of one particular show. It felt like once 8 o'clock hit, there still didn't seem to be a clear vision for how to get to like 11:05. Whether it was character inconsistencies or storylines that didn't make sense, and I just found myself, as I would live tweet about the show, completely focusing on way too much negative and not nearly enough positive. And it wasn't for lack of looking. It didn't seem to be there at all. And I found myself back in a place that I had been before, which I find to be a completely unhealthy position to be in. Which is that for the most part, it was hate watching. It was taking 3 hours out of my Monday night to watch something that wasn't bringing me any sort of satisfaction, for the primary purpose of then complaining about it. Critiquing it, yes. But with most of that critique being complaining about how not good this was. And you can see it. It manifests in the way that the Hell in the Cell card is laid out. It manifests in the way that you look up and down the card and see match after match after match that you just don't care about. Match after match that you'll watch and you'll hope for the best, but there's no emotional gut punch. There's nothing there that you're just gravitating towards. There's nothing there that you're just like, oh, I can't wait to not miss this. And that even starts at the top. You have Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker to round out their trilogy of matches inside Hell in a Cell. And the build to this match has been so minimal, using mostly just video packages, no real interactions between them to feed off of what would be any sort of tension, any sort of animosity, resulting in their controversial SummerSlam finish, that to see this be kind of the blow-off of their feud inside the Hell in the Cell structure, and there lacks a complete feel of specialness for this, a complete feel of anything extraordinary going to happen inside Hell in the Cell, which is absurd. Now, on the night, I might feel differently, because when Brock Lesnar comes out and he's going to be engaged in a match, I know that I'm going to see something that I need to watch. But leading into it, I don't have that feeling at all. The Undertaker typically only came around at WrestleMania once a year. There was a specialness to it. And now that he's here for SummerSlam, now that he's here for Hell in the Cell, but still not really quite here. There's a void that's left there. Yeah, it's cool to be able to see The Undertaker, but once again, just saying The Undertaker's here doesn't do anything leading up to the night. Seth Rollins versus Kane? I wasn't excited about that when it was announced. I'm less excited as I've seen the way this story has been built. With Seth Rollins booked as this chicken shit kind of champion who inconsistently either challenges Kane or runs away from him. And not in like the good running away. Not in the way that, like the Ric Flair kind of way, where you hide as best you can and then you come out to take full advantage in order to create some sort of high ground for you to attack from. This is just a guy who just runs away all the time. Bray Wyatt and Roman Reigns inside of Hell in the Cell. I feel like every week we have something that's there that is been kind of done to death week in and week out. I'm all for advancing a feud. I'm all for building a feud. But when every week they're getting their hands on each other, it kind of takes away from when when them getting their hands on each other is supposed to be a big deal because it feels like I've seen that before. It's the same thing going into a tag team championship match with the New Day and the Dudleys. We see it every week. We've seen the Dudleys put the New Day through how many tables? So when you get to the pay-per-view, you feel like you've seen it all. I mean, I'm interested in the U.S. Open Challenge just to see who mysteriously and secretly may show up to compete against John Cena. I'm curious in Kevin Owens versus Ryback, just because they've at least given Kevin Owens something to do here to poke at Ryback. But up and down the card, it just feels like a lot of emptiness. It feels like a lot of stuff that I'm going to watch once again, because every month I watch a WWE pay-per-view. I want to make sure I get my money's worth for the WWE Network, so I tune into this programming. But at least this week on Raw, I took the power back like I have in previous instances, where I don't watch out of obligation, I watch because I want to. And this week, it didn't want to. You got a Monday Night Football game that I was more interested to see, being a New York Giants fan. So Giants-Eagles, that compelled me. I had to go out and do some things. It wasn't like, oh, well, I got to rush through this in order to get back to Raw. No, just went about my business, did my errands, did my things. Brand new trailer for Star Wars The Force Awakens is launching Monday night. That's a big deal. And this just goes to show, this is the problem that the WWE has right now, which is when you have programming that doesn't compel people to watch it, if they have a better option to watch, they will now go and seek it out. They will change the channel. They will flip to the other thing. They'll go about their other business. Why? Because there's nothing keeping them there to watch Raw, to watch SmackDown. There's no story there that you're like, oh my God, I can't miss this. You can miss it just fine. And I think the WWE just needs to get back to telling good, compelling, interesting, and simple stories that draw you in emotionally to the point that you need to see this. Because if you don't, you're going to feel like you're missing out. This isn't FOMO either. This isn't just fear of missing out. This is fear of missing something great. And I think people too often are watching it hoping to maybe see something on the off chance that might keep them going. But much too often they see something that just doesn't do it for them. And this is coming as a lifelong wrestling fan who always watched, who always goes to the shows. I'm the guy that the WWE should be worried about. I'm the guy that the WWE should be concerned with losing. Because when you do lose your hardcore fan base, when you do lose those people who you think will always be around, when you do lose those people who make up the foundation, who aren't just the casual fans, when you turn off your core, that's when you run into real problems. All right, that is my take on this week's shows and heading into Hell in the Cell. Next week, of course, we'll do a post Hell in the Cell post game, I guess, post pay-per-view analysis. So we'll give you all the rundown and the breakdown of everything that took place there on the pay-per-view. So stay tuned next week for that as we go match by match. Tell you what worked, what didn't work, and how it ultimately came across and how they can build forward on it. Let's move on to my guest this week. He is a former TNA television champion, also a former TNA World Tag Team champion, and he is currently the star of the brand new motion picture Navy SEALs vs. Zombies, which you can find right now available on all digital platforms as well as Blu-ray and DVD. I present my conversation with Chad Gunner Lail. Hey man, how's it going?
Good, Billy. How are you doing today?
I'm all right. How are you?
Wonderful, man. Can't complain.
Good to hear. All right.
Yeah.
I guess the best place to start is obviously with the movie, and how does Navy SEALs versus Zombies come about? Do you get approached to do this movie? Do you have to audition? What's the process like for you to join this film at its outset?
Yeah, back in February, a buddy of mine, my acting coach, out of Baton Rouge, Judge Lorber, he actually, knows the casting director, Lisa, and he'd mentioned to her, they have a possible guy that, would fit the Carl part for the film, and it's what the shots. She's like, sure, let's just give him an audition. So I had to do the audition a couple different times. If they wanted to see one a little bit more serious and one a little, where the guy was kind of, joking around a little more. But literally, once I did the audition, I guess maybe a week later, they were like, "Yeah, we love him. Definitely want to use him." So it's a pretty quick turnaround for me, because a lot of times, you'll do auditions and you'll get the, they're interested in you, but then you'll never hear anything back. They find somewhere else or whatnot. This is how acting rolls. But for this one, it was literally a week later, and then I guess a couple weeks. I was down in Baton Rouge for the film, so it was a fast process.
Well, at what point do you exactly know what the project is? Did you know kind of going in what it was, or were you just kind of said like, hey, there's this movie here, you might be good for it, like why don't you just go in and kind of read for it and see what happens?
No, they actually, when they sent me the audition, I knew that it was a Navy SEAL role. I believe. I already knew that it was a zombie flick as well. And then I think right after the audition, they sent me the whole script, just kind of, look at it. So I knew the story, I knew what was going on. And it's always good to have that whole script, because you can kind of, not only read your lines, but read, the other actors' lines as well, and kind of, just kind of seeing what you have to feed off of.
Well, when they tell you like what the title is, when they're like, it's Navy SEALs versus Zombies, are you skeptical? Like, what the hell am I getting myself into? Or was it something that was, so ridiculous sounding, you were like, what the hell, man? Like, well, let's just roll with it and see how it turns out.
No, me, I'm from the professional wrestling world, so skepticism doesn't really run with me. So much, so much garbage you may get fed sometimes, like, oh, this is what you're going to do to your character. And you're like, really? So for me, it's just like, I've always been doing auditions for right at 2 years, maybe a little longer now. So when I got the opportunity to do this role, I wasn't, skeptic about it or nothing. I loved the script. I thought it was awesome. And then you got to look. I always use the example Snakes on a Plane as my thing. People, look at that title and they're like, what kind of title is that? But I mean, people love the movie. Some people hate it. Well, that's any movie. But so when I saw Navy SEALs versus Zombies, I was like, well, first of all, everybody's really into the military stuff, and then everybody is like zombie fanatics now. So you put those two together, and I think you're gonna have a different fan base. So I was ready to jump on board. I was excited, not only that, but to do a lead role with my first film was huge. So I was ready for it.
Well, yeah, you bring up something like Snakes on a Plane, which at that point. It had this very unique novelty to it. For these types of movies had been done long time ago, and then kind of went away. And then Snakes on a Plane brought it back, and now everybody has seemed to embrace either the ludicrous monster sort, or also everybody's back into the versus type of things. Sci-fi has like made a killing, so to speak, off of Mecha Godzilla versus Super Piranha and whatnot. So are you a fan of those type of movies too? What as somebody who enjoys movies, as we all do, what type of films do it for you? Is it something like this? Is it something else, or is it a little bit of everything?
It's a little bit of everything. I actually enjoyed. I haven't seen any of the Sharknado movies where people are like they're so bad you have to watch them. I haven't watched them yet, but I do enjoy like the remake of Piranhas they did, stuff like that. I thought was just they only added that horror factor to it, but it added a comedy, which I enjoy, which is kind of what Navy Seals and versus Zombies did. We all, the actors, we're all funny and we all got along anyway. So when it came to that, we was just like we had the horror factor, but then there's parts of the movie where we're joking with each other. And me personally, I watched a lot of different types of movies. Some that I'll watch just to see if you got critics or fans who say they're horrible, but I'll watch just obviously my own critique of it. So there's really not any type of movie that I don't watch or get into.
When you're taking on this role, it kind of fits in this very sweet spot between all of your experiences. So you obviously have the performance aspect, which works into you being involved with professional wrestling. There's the stuff that deals with your military career, which, by the way, thank you for your service. So you have that. And how are you able to take the pieces from those different parts and apply it to here? Because once again, you're using elements from wrestling. So you're acting, you're performing, you're creating a character instead of doing it in front of a live audience. Now you're doing it on a closed set and you're doing it take after take after take, as opposed to let's just do it live all the way through and see how it turns out and how we react to it. And then by that same token, you have action setups. So instead of calling moves and whatnot on the fly, reacting to an audience and whatnot, here you have stunt choreography where the lighting and the camera angles and the blocking and all of these things are taken into account in terms of composing a shot and building the scene. And then you also have the weapons, the military training. So you're handling weapons, you're engaged in fight sequences, the things that you would use from the military. But now, once again, all these tools that you would use, but they're also done a little bit differently. Did you find it tough to kind of adapt to using those different elements for what ultimately winds up being a completely different experience?
No, it wasn't too hard to kind of adapt to the acting part. When I started doing auditions, I was larger than life with everything. So my coach was like, okay, look, you gotta kind of chime things down, because wrestling, you're used to, like you said, an arena filled with people. So you're having to not only reach people in the front seat, you're having to reach the audiences up in the nosebleed or whatnot. So in acting, it's really unless you got a huge action scene and you're not being larger than life, but the camera's right there on your face the majority of the time, so there's not a lot of movement. So by the time I think I got on set for this film, it was easier for me because I knew, hey, you don't do a lot of big movements. The acting came natural just because of what I do as a pro wrestler, and the military stuff, all the weapons handling and everything. It's crazy because you see how people are like, what do you mean weapons handling? Well, there's a certain way that like a SEAL or a Marine or any armed forces hold, the M16 or the M4 or any type of weapon, opposed to a person who's never been in the military. That elbow is not cocked the way up. We call it the chicken wing, which is tight to your side, and just small details that make the person go, that guy knows what he's doing, or that guy's really in the military. And it was really a fun project for me, just something totally different. I got to kind of take the character Carl. And he was a kind of a hard ass, but he also had that kind of soft side too that the fans would get to see with him and AJ, and kind of be a mentor. So it was really cool for me to do that. Because when I was in the Marine Corps, I was a sergeant, so I was over 30 or 45 Marines. So it's kind of being the mentor. I knew what to do, I knew how to act, and just kind of knew how to portray that character, which I think helped me a lot. Going in, being one of the main guys, the main character of Carl.
Well, a lot of these films wind up using advisors, people who have been involved in the military before, in order to kind of lend an authenticity to how things happen. Like you said, the way formations are carried out, the way people carry weapons, the way you would move, and hand signals and commands, and the speech. Obviously, the vernacular is a lot different than civilians would just use in that type of situation. Did you find yourself being called upon to kind of lend your experience and what you knew to maybe ground it a little bit more here and there than what previously may have been in the script?
I did, but the main guys who did that, I was there to help and kind of critique some of the guys. But Mikkel Vega and Kevin Kent, who are Billy and Travis in the film, they are, they're the tech. They were the tech advisors on set. Those two guys were, they're both actually retired SEALs. So I mean, they knew way more than I knew. They've been doing it for 20 plus years. So when it came to that stuff, those guys have helped film movies like Transformers and Ninja Turtles and all kinds of other stuff. So I mean, they've been there and done that. So when it came to that, a lot of times, the actors, even me, I mean, it's kind of a refresher course for me because I've been out of the Marine Corps for almost 10 years. So, those guys are the ones that you go, hey, what would a SEAL do in this situation? How are we clearing this room, or how are we getting this formation? I helped a little bit, but like I said, when it came to the master of the skill, those two guys right there really knew and still know what they're doing.
One of the things I've noticed that the film gets right is the family feel of the military and teams and squads and crews and platoons and whatnot, and how these people are your family over time, because of what it is that you're going through, because of what it is that you're involved in, the closeness of it, the intensity of it, the trust and reliance upon each other, and that's a huge part is having these characters be able to believe in each other and know that they have each other's back. Especially going from your own experience, how did you think the film handled that aspect of it, and in terms of the brotherhood and the camaraderie of this particular SEAL team?
I think it's a great story. Stanton Barrett, the producer and director, he did a tremendous job. And not only that, but like I did an interview a couple of days ago where I talked about camaraderie and brotherhood, and how I've heard of some actors on set just don't get along, and it's just hard to deal with. But the first day we all got together, we actually got together to dinner a day before we started shooting. You would have thought we'd known each other 20 years. All these guys, all of us actors just got along so well, and it really shows even more in the film, because some of the stuff that's in the film, some of the dialogue, it was just ad lib on the fly, and it was just things that we had, whether we were at a bar or went to, crazy good steakhouse, Sullivan's in Baton Rouge we love to go to. We'd all just sit there and just kind of banter back and forth with each other, man. And when you get, you got the two retired SEALs and me as a Marine, we all get together. We're obviously joking with each other, but then you put, the other two actors in play, and it was just, like I said, it was amazing to me, my first film, to be able to just feel comfortable, because it was my first movie. So going on set, I didn't know what to expect, but these guys kind of took me under their wing. Ed Quinn and the other three, I mean, they've been doing this for a while, so they took me under their wing, and it was just like, still with the flow, man, be yourself, enjoy it. If something's not right, they'll cut, they'll take it again. And it just helped, I think, make an even better movie, just because we did get along so well, and it showed like what an actual, SEAL team or any military group should act like. They're gonna kind of get mad at each other here and there, and then they're gonna just joke around for the most part.
Do you have a favorite zombie kill?
In the movie or in life?
Both.
In the movie, yeah, I think probably the kill where there's one stair scene where a zombie kind of jumps over the rail and charges at me. I slam him against the wall and pull out my sidearm and blow his brains out. But I think my favorite one, we did a scene where I'm trying to spoil the movie for anybody, but I don't think it will. We did a scene where me and Ed Quinn and Mikkel are at a door waiting to, we know when they open the door, there's going to be a herd of zombies come out. So when we do, one charges me and I slam it against the wall and stab him in the head with my knife. It was a really fun scene. We had to do it over and over and over again just to get different takes. But yeah, I think that's my favorite one. From that, I think my favorite zombie kill of all time. I don't recall what movie it was from, but I remember a zombie getting his head just kind of tore apart by a lawnmower. So the guy picks up a lawnmower and just throws it on his head. So interesting.
Well, the thing about zombie kills, you got to get creative after a while. You got to do. You always.
Your Walking Dead got it all.
Oh well, they started just getting ridiculous to the point where you were like, "Oh, come on, man."
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of it. But yeah, there's so many it's just like I think Greg Nicotero is his name. He's definitely innovative when it comes to some of the zombie kills.
I mean, do you have? I mean, zombies are a huge deal, especially since The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead kind of, I think, rejuvenated zombie films and just the zombie genre, where at that point everybody's like, well, we have to do something with zombies, because at that point zombies had been around for quite some time, but they were never to the level that they are now. Do you have particular zombie properties that you enjoy other than The Walking Dead? Are there other zombie films that you've gone back to numerous times? You're like, damn, this is just really good.
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that, because I actually grew up. I mean, I'm 33, so I was born in '82, and I grew up. It's funny because people are like, what kind of movies you watch as a kid? Other than pro wrestling, I was lucky enough that my mother and my grandmother would let me watch Porky's Revenge, and you got all these nudity scenes, and they let me watch the horror. Yeah, it's funny. They let me watch the horror scenes. So other than Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers, I grew up on. I am a huge fan of George Romero and his Return of the Living Dead, Night of the Living Dead. Return of the Living Dead is still one I finally found on DVD that just it blew me away as a kid. I can still watch it, and I probably quote the whole movie, but. I love all those movies he did, like The Day of the Dead, any of those. I own all the classic horror movies. So when Walking Dead come out, it was new for me. It's a new style of zombie genre, but I get into all of them. Even if they're bad, I watch them. Because zombies that run real fast, because zombies that move slow. It's just cool how, zombies have kind of evolved. People love, and I think it's good. I think it's good that they've evolved. You can't have the zombie that walks real slow and necessarily scare people all the time. So they come up with these, the World War Z style zombies that are, screaming and running. And, I kind of get into everything. But George Romero is definitely by far one of my favorites, horror guys.
So you serve time in the military, in the Marines, and then once you're done, you decide to get involved with pro wrestling. What made you decide to go from the military into professional wrestling?
A lot of people don't know wrestling is what I want to do since I was 5. It's literally living my dream on top of acting now. But I graduated high school in 2000, started doing independent shows in 2000, which is small, doing arm racing schools and stuff like that. So once I joined the Marine Corps in 2001, I had a year off just because of boot camp and different training I had to go through. Ended up getting stationed at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, which is roughly 5.5 hours away from where I'm from. So every weekend, unless I was deployed, I would travel every weekend to wrestle. So even in the Marine Corps, I busted the road and did shows every weekend for the most part, like I said, unless I was overseas. And then when I got out in 06 is really when I started full time. So I never let. I was pretty cool enough to have some good leaders who knew I wrestled. And I was like, yeah, you can get off early on Friday and go do your shows all weekend and just be back here, by Monday morning to work. So thankfully I was lucky enough to have some cool leaders to take care of me. But yeah, wrestling is living my dream.
Well, what was your hook? Because everybody kind of always remembers something that they had seen, especially as a kid. When you get into it as a kid, you always remember this is what I saw and this is what what got me watching. Like, what was your hook? What was it like right from the start that made you love it and once again dream about one day doing it?
Oh man, you got to play Macho Man. Macho Man's still one of my all-time favorites. Hulk Hogan. Growing up with those guys, just as a kid, I think I watched cartoons. I was into Spider-Man and stuff like that, like normal kids. I never really read comic books. I think my comic book characters, my superheroes, were professional wrestlers. I don't remember. I know I own some Thundercat figures or He-Man or something like that, but I never. All I can remember is playing with wrestling figures and GI Joes, and just really wrestling wasn't my larger than life comic book characters that I dreamed of being like, and just always got into. I'm a huge fan of Arnold ever since I can remember. So growing up, I watched Commando over and over and over again. I just remember going, man, I really want to be big like him. And so that and then wrestling kind of came hand in hand. I always got into bodybuilding and then always got into pro wrestling. Just something that intrigued me as a kid, and it's all I ever wanted to do.
Do you remember your first card? Ever, like the first time you ever went to a live event, what your first card was?
It was actually, yeah, the thing is, I'm a fan here since I was 5, but my first time I ever went to a live wrestling show, I was 15 years old, just because, Mom didn't make a lot of money as a kid. My dad, he didn't really come into my life until I was a little older, like 11 or 12, so I didn't really get a chance to go to any of these shows. So it was 1995 in Charlotte, North Carolina, at the WCW Nitro, and me and my buddy and my mom, she took us. We were nosebleed, but I do remember I was like, man, this is amazing. And then, after that, it was like, almost every other month I was going to a show. Mainly with my dad at that time. He would take me there to put all the Nitros, the Raws, and all the pay-per-views and stuff that came close to the North Carolina area.
You get involved with the NWA at some point in your career, which obviously, as a wrestling fan, the long storied history of the NWA and the NWA Heavyweight Championship. When you're involved there, are you aware of that? Obviously, when you're as a fan, you know the ins and outs. You know everything that's going on. You know who held this belt and when and who beat who and whatnot. But when you're in it, does the weight of it kind of hit you at any point and say like, wow, I'm doing something really cool that all these people I look up to at one point were also involved in?
Yeah, I think, it did, because, like I said, I grew up watching wrestling, not only like the WCW and the WWF and WWE, but me and my buddy would literally just stay up all night and watch anything and everything. We had old tapes, so one of my most fond memories when I got a chance to take a group picture with these guys a couple of years ago, was Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard in the I Quit match they did in the cage.
Oh, wow.
And these guys, there's two guys that me and Magnum are really good friends now, and me and Tully are really good friends. It's really cool to do that. So going into, when I started with NWA in 2006 and then got a chance to kind of run with the national title, which was a huge opportunity for me, the guys who held that, the names go on, Tully and Dusty, and you name names forever. But once I hit that step, I was like, this is really cool. Like you said, there's guys that paved the way, and yes, at the time, NWA, the territories aren't big like they used to be, but still there's so many different NWA promotions in the Carolinas, Georgia, the Midwest, LA, all kinds of areas. So there's still little small, kind of territories that I got to hit and do different, matches and shows with tremendous talent like Adam Pearce and guys like that. So it was really cool for me. I'm really big on history and wrestling and the respect of the guys that paved the way before me. And it's something I did sit back and go, it's really awesome.
How is it then that you came upon being a part of TNA? Obviously you're working with the NWA, you're working indie shows, you're building your name, you're getting yourself out there, you're putting yourself on the radar as far as on a larger level. Was it? How did it come about that you joined up with TNA, and were there other discussions as far as with WWE or anything like that, or was it TNA came to you and said, hey, we like what you do and we'd like to sign you?
Well, actually, I started with I want to say late 2008. I started. It was my foot in the door came to Terry Taylor and D'Lo Brown, and both D'Lo had known me from doing extra stuff with WWE. Extra stuff meaning like you go in and if they need security or they need to be the guy for an extra match or whatnot, and that's the independent guys. That's their chance to kind of get their foot in the door. So D'Lo knew me, and at the time, Terry Taylor, I met him down NWA Anarchy in Georgia, and it was just kind of their way of getting my foot in the door was the security role that I started out doing in TNA, which was really, there was no contract. I had to drive every other week to Orlando me and another guy, for a little bit of money. They paid for our hotel and kind of give us a daily fee, which was nice. But that was our paying dues for a year and a half. And I actually, while I was doing, TNA security, I would still do WWE kind of extra spots, and just whichever one kind of snagged me first was the one I was going to go with. And it did happen in 2010. TNA finally offered me and my tag team partner at the time, Michael Judas. They offered us a contract, and we would make a tag team for I think maybe 3 months, and then they split me off on my own and kind of go from there. So that was really, doing security for a year and a half, 2 years almost. And by security, people are like, oh, what do you mean? Like you let the fans in? No, we were on-air security, so we would do stuff with like Hogan and Dixie Carter. We were the muscle pretty much, and like I said, that was just kind of our way into the door. It was rough at times. It was very discouraging because I was like, I really want to wrestle, but at the same point, I was just getting my foot in the door, showing people I was willing to, drive. It was a long drive. It's like 9 hours from my house, so you're looking at, 20 hours on the road just to get, do 3 or 4 days of tapings for those guys. But it paid off after 6 years. I just recently left back in June, and but it really paid off.
Well, with TNA, there's always been kind of this criticism towards it as far as the creative direction. It moves in one way, then it stops. Then it moves in another way, it stops. It moves in another way, it stops. You have different people behind the scenes who are directing creative, whether it's Jeff Jarrett at a time, Vince Russo at a time, Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff at a time. When you're dealing with kind of these different parts that are constantly moving, how difficult is it and how frustrating it is, I guess, to try to put in the work and make it stick, to make it so that you're somebody that they constantly are looking at and believe in to do something with, whether it's TV time or matches higher up on the card or anything like that. And, did you ever feel at those times where, hey, I'm making some headway, I'm gaining some ground, I'm doing something, and then boom, roadblock hits, and now it's a setback, I got to start over again?
There was so many times I felt that way. I'm thankful for my opportunity in Impact Wrestling. I spent 6 years there.
Mm-hmm.
Got a chance to work with awesome guys. I still have good friends there. But I'm so glad, when I left back in June, it was a weight off my shoulders. I was like, what, this is the right thing to do. It's time to move on. It's time to pursue acting more or even jump and try to go to WWE. There are so many times where I was given the ball to run with, per se, and I never did anything wrong. I can tell you that, and my fans can tell you that, and my fellow workers can tell you that. But there were just so many times I've been given this opportunity, and you say that roadblock. It was that roadblock, whether it was a new person coming in, it was kind of like the flavor of the month, or just, I don't know what happened. Many opportunities. In 2014, I had the biggest opportunity in my career when me and Magnus, who was the champion then, main evented in Manchester Arena. And that was huge for me. The match was tremendous. It went really, really well. And then me and James Storm did a really big feud with each other. It kind of, we stole the show many nights. But then after that, it was kind of, I just kind of got lost in the sauce again. There's so many changes for the 6 years I was in TNA. Like I said, new guys coming in, guys that had been with WWE that came in that I guess Dixie and the writers were, high on and wanted to do this with, and then forget about their homegrown talent. Guys like me, like Bobby Roode and James Storm, guys who kind of get lost in the sauce, which is ridiculous. You got to worry about your homegrown talent. You got to worry about the future, the stars of the future, because you got the guys coming in that have been on top before, but the fans don't want to see that all the time necessarily. They want to see new guys being built. I mean, just look at what WWE doing with NXT. All the guys on TV are all younger stars now. I mean, you still have the Sting and the Hunter. They come out there and do their matches, but for the most part, WWE is building like their stars. And I think that's the biggest mistake with Impact is they're not good at building their stars.
Well, what's the feeling like that of backstage when you're, are there almost like factions, so to speak, that get created by just the very nature of how the organization is structured? Do you have like, the guys who have been around TNA for a while, the originals or whatnot, like, do they kind of stick together and look out for each other? And then you have, maybe the veterans, the guys who've been around longer who weren't brought up in TNA, but now they're there, and this is them trying to make their living or stretch out their legacy. Like, how does that work backstage? Not only amongst talent, but I guess also as you're having these different creative directors coming in. Like, how do people react to these changes? Is it hopeful at first? Is it pessimistic? Is it, we've seen this before, this is just it's more of the same? Like, how does all of that get processed? I guess not only amongst you, but I guess also your friends and whatnot who are also involved here.
Yeah, I think, we're all wrestlers, we're all independent contractors, we're all out there to obviously make money.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one good thing about Impact. It's really, there was no, cliques. There was no group of veterans, a group of older TNA guys kind of looked out for themselves. We're all looking out for ourselves because it's our job. But the thing is it was a family. And I'm not sure how it is now, since I've been going in June. But I know we all looked out for each other, whether it was an idea me and Ken Anderson traveled together all the time. We lived in San Charles. We were always just spitting ideas out for each other and trying to better things. But when it came down to that, it's we're not writing the show, and a lot of the times, the writers just wouldn't listen. They wouldn't. They'd be like, yeah, well, we got this idea, but then a couple weeks later, you're off TV for 6 weeks. So I'm like, well, what idea was that? But you talk about the change and. I think after a while, I've been there since 2009, and seen so many changes that we as the guys, as the workers, the wrestlers, we just kind of was like, well, here it goes again. We're just going to see where it takes us now. And I think the big change was leaving Spike TV and going to Destination America, where everybody was kind of getting a little worried. The morale always stayed high. We were always a family. We always took care of each other. Everybody worked hard to produce a good product, but I think once that change happened, there was a little fear, worrying about our jobs and whatnot. But we always had the hopeful thing, if somebody come in, a new writer or a new talent relations guy, that it was going to be something good. But I think it kind of, we all knew it was really just kind of going to be the same thing.
Well, how forward and how honest was management with talent about how things were going on? Because you talk about obviously the shift from Spike to Destination America. There's always been rumblings about paychecks either being late or being backed up or whatnot. How forthcoming was management with the talent about any issues that might be on the horizon, how they were going to deal with it, and what that meant for the future outlook of the company?
Me personally, we would have talent meetings here and there about Destination America or Spike or paychecks and whatnot. They would give us some truth for the most part, but a lot of times I felt like there was a lot of hot air being blown. I think there was more to it than we realized. Dixie Carter knows a little bit more than she wants to tell or she can tell. I don't know, but I really think a big trust for the company is, hey, you got to let your workers know what's going on, because we're the ones out there beating our bodies to produce your TV shows. And for the most part, we were kept in the loop. I was paid on time. My paychecks never bounced or anything. I never heard of that happening. I see reports of it happening, but it never happened to me. But for the most part, we were kept in the loop. But I do think there's a lot of times that, emails weren't returned to certain talent, and that's kind of that's bad business. And if I own a company and you email me and ask me just a simple question, I would rather, as an employee, get a yes, a no, a go to hell, or something than no email at all. There's a couple of times where emails were not returned, and it's very, it's unprofessional, man. And I mean, that's, like I said, for a main wrestling company where you're putting out a TV product, and like I said, your wrestlers are out there putting their body and their lives, on the line. Like, I think the best you can do is just email the person back. So there's a lot of times, like I said, when we were, for the most part, told the truth. Then there was, a handful of times where I think it was just, we're going to tell them this just to kind of make them happy.
Yeah, no response is always worse than honest response.
Horrible. It's very unprofessional to me. And unfortunately, like in the wrestling world, you get it off, and it's like, man, dude, everybody's on their phone, dude. We all text, we all email. It's going to take you 30 seconds to send me a yes, no, something. Send me something. I'd rather get, hey, leave me the hell alone. Yeah,
because you're like, I know they got the email. Why the hell won't they answer it? What's the problem?
Right. And it happened. Yes, it happened. It's just lack of communication a lot of times. With that company.
You bring up, obviously, earlier being a fan from an early age and kind of growing up and knowing the history of it. When you're working with people that you idolized as a kid, you guys like Hulk Hogan and Kurt Angle and Ric Flair and these names who have done so much, what is that like? I mean, because obviously you're a performer, you're a professional, and you're trying to you put on the best show that you can every single night. But deep down, I'm sure there's still a part of you that's a fan that's like, dude, that's Hulk Hogan right there. Like, this is awesome.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, when I got the chance to be in the Immortal and kind of, be with Hogan and be with Bischoff, no matter what people say about Bischoff, the man's brilliant. He's brilliant when it comes to TV, and Hogan's brilliant when it comes to character development. So I got just an amazing opportunity to work beside these guys. I got an amazing opportunity to be managed by Ric Flair for a few months before he left the company. So when you get a chance as a young guy like me to kind of mingle with these legends, with these guys that are around forever, I'm huge. I'll pick their brain. It was a big opportunity. And, unfortunately, not a lot of guys in the business are going to get to do that anymore. These guys are kind of, fading out and retiring and all this other stuff. But for me, it was really good. It was really cool to stand in the ring with Hogan and, while he's doing the promo, or do backstage stuff with him and Bischoff, and just kind of get to, build a friendship with him. And that was the biggest part of, here I am as a kid, standing beside Hulk Hogan, one of my childhood heroes, and getting a chance to hold a conversation with him, talk wrestling, or just talk anything in general. So yeah, for me, that was definitely a big mark-out moment, just a big fan moment. So it was really cool.
Are there things that lessons that you learned from them that you think are important for not just yourself as an individual performer, but that all professional wrestlers should know, like these keys to the universe that should be unlocked for people to know, just as important basics moving forward to not only succeed but just to be good and be respected and do a job well?
Yeah, I think there's a lost art sometimes in full wrestling. It's a different business now. Like, it's a more spot-based business. But then again, still, Hogan taught me so much about my facial. He goes, dude, you got these eyes, like he called me, he said, you got these Charlie Manson eyes, like, use them and sell to the people. And he goes, the biggest thing is your face. And he goes, that camera always goes to your face. If you're down on the mat or whatever, it's not going to go to your hand or your arm or whatever. It's going to go to your face, because that's what's selling the product, and you getting beat up or you beating someone up, to the people at home. So they were like, wow, this guy's really aggressive. So he always told me, like, use that, like, show it in your eyes, show it in your, your demeanor. Bischoff always, he took, go back to that. A lot of kids aren't. I watch independent shows so much now. I do so many independent shows right now that, a lot of kids are just kind of like, they're like mimes in the ring. They'll go through the motions, but there's no, like, they'll go through the emotions, not emotions, but there's no emotion to their face. There's no selling to the people in the front row. I don't care if there's 30 people in the crowd at an independent show, you still, I always take one person out in the front row, and that's the one I either sell to or yell to. And, you know, I think it's a lost art. Bischoff taught me to be larger than life, which when it goes to acting, it's totally opposite. So,
yeah.
Larger than life meaning, you know, sometimes you go to an arena, you know, and it's not full. You know, the nosebleed section is not full. So when we do these arena tapings for TNA, I mean, obviously we had attendance problems here and there, but we would do these big arenas. But he goes, you know, be sure to, like, when you're doing a promo or something, like, point up to the nosebleed section, like, make sure these people home, make them believe, even if the arena's not full, that it's actually full. So, I mean, even I talk to kids about that too at independent shows, and I do seminars about, you know, not just the person in the front row, but sell to that person in the very back row. Guys like Ricky Steamboat were the best at it. He would sell huge to where that person in the very top nosebleed seat would believe that Ricky was reaching out to him, and that's very important to me. It's just showing the emotion. We're doing a live action movie, and if somebody shoots me with a gun in an action movie, I got to sell where I got shot. Well, if somebody punches me in the face in real life, and not only that, in the wrestling ring, I have to sell it like, oh my God, he just knocked my teeth out. So that's really a couple of big lessons they taught me that I try to instill in younger guys as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point because a lot of it becomes, you know, as you mentioned, spot-based. A lot of it is sometimes seems to be focused more on the technical, on the athletic. When, once again, like, at its very basic, a wrestling match is telling a story, you know, that's meant to evoke some type of emotion from the people that are watching it, much like a TV show would or a movie would, where you have these characters, and if you get invested in what's happening to them, you'll go along with the ride no matter what happens. Whereas if it's cold, if it's just something you're watching, just as you said, going through the motions, it's much more difficult to grab onto that, to gravitate towards that, and to go along for that ride.
It definitely is. And I always tell the guys, too, like, you are telling a story for these people, and don't forget the fans. Like I said, I go back to independent shows where some guys are just going through the motion, and they forget totally about the people in the crowd who paid the ticket to get interacted with. So, that, you know, you don't, just like a TV show, like you said, if I'm watching a TV show and it's boring me, I'm not going to get into it. But if I'm watching a wrestling match, I'm just the same way. Like, it's a live TV show, a live action movie, and you really got to make people believe, and you have to intrigue them somehow to want to tune in next week.
One of the strengths that TNA was always given credit for, I think, was the talent roster. Always had an immense talent roster, whether they knew how to use it or not. But from top to bottom, you could look at guys and say, "Damn, that guy's good. Damn, that guy's good." Were there people that you thought were used properly, that they got the most out of and maximized their value, I guess? And then by that same token, are there any people along the way that you look at and you just say, how could they possibly miss the boat on this person? I can't believe that they didn't see what they had.
Yeah, I think one they really used well there for a while was Austin Aries. They really knew that the fans loved him, and Austin could go out there and wrestle and work with any guy, any night. They finally got the boat with Eric Young. I mean, he'd done so much stuff throughout the years, did comedy stuff, and then when he finally kind of did a switch where now he's one of their main heels. I'm glad to see them, using him. I always say the one that they really dropped the ball with is Sam Shaw. Me and Sam did a lot of really cool stuff at the end of 2014. But Sam is another very diverse character that he can do anything in the ring, anything in the back. Everything he did was just, to me, 100%, 110%. And I think that's one guy they dropped the ball on. And when they let him go, I guess about a month before they let me go, he was like, "Are you kidding me?" I mean, he's a young guy, make it anywhere in the wrestling world. But, once again, I think they kind of had their mindset on these, NXT or ex-WWE guys that they wanted to bring in and just, put in front of their homegrown talent. And unfortunately, that's not what's best for business, in my opinion.
Was there anybody surprised you that you looked at and you were like, okay, well they may be nice, they're a nice part of the roster, and they went on to something far larger than I think anybody expected them to, as far as what it was they were capable of or how they connected to the audience. Was there anybody like that who really, overperformed, that overachieved, that people were surprised about?
Yeah, I think, you know what? I'm good friends with Jesse Goddard. Him and Robbie E had done the tag team for so long, the bromance. And, when Jesse first got there, he was real young. He really kind of, he was still being taught. So they threw him on TV way before I personally think he was ready. And that's not a bash at him because he's my friend, and I've probably told him this before. But now that I look at him, Jesse's come a really long way. I'm sure there's some other guys I could pick, but that's really just one that came to mind that, really impressed me. He wanted to get better. I personally think he got better. I mean, I worked with him when he first came, and I worked with him when he, right before I left. He's one that kind of impressed me by just, really not being, happy with just being, average. He wanted to do better every time he got in the ring, and he would listen and he would learn.
What does the future hold for you? Period. Is it, obviously you mentioned, leaving TNA earlier than the year, and there's still some questions about what their future might be moving forward, as far as the company is concerned. But there is also kind of this, revival of wrestling outside of the WWE right now. You do have the WWE. You also have obviously Global Force Wrestling with Jeff Jarrett out there. You have Lucha Underground is big. New Japan is starting to be larger stateside. NXT, which is under the WWE, is a major brand now in its own right. Is wrestling still something in the cards for you? Is that still something that you're chasing? Or have you lived that dream and now you're moving on to something else, and acting, that's the primary goal? That's what you're most focused on right now?
You know what? Wrestling is my life, and it has been for a long, long time. And I still have that missing part of me that, I once tried WWE. I want that WrestleMania moment. If my career ended tomorrow for some reason, I couldn't complain because I've got a chance to wrestle all over the world, do many different things that a lot of people don't get to do. But I still, like I said, there's that missing link, and WWE is that missing link for me. Even when I was with TNA, in the back of my mind, I'm like, you have to try it. So for the most part, I do want to try that. But I think, I really want to save my body, and acting is, I got this acting bug now. I still do. I do a lot of auditions. I'm heading out to LA next week to do a 3-week acting course. And just I'm wanting to better myself. And sometimes you got to invest money to better yourself. Throughout my years of wrestling, I have missed reunions. I've missed funerals. I've spent way more money than I probably, well, maybe not made now, but at the time I would literally live paycheck to paycheck for, to do these shows for hardly nothing. So, acting is another thing you got to pay your dues. And I think in the future, I see myself doing more movies. I definitely do. I think I'm doing really well. I've impressed a lot of casting agents and stuff that are really good out of Atlanta and out of LA. And it's just I guess my main goal is hopefully shoot for that WrestleMania moment. But wrestling is a different world now. They look for different people, and if that doesn't pass, like I said, I won't be sad. I'll just carry on to acting, because acting is just another love of mine.
Chad, an absolute pleasure, man. I appreciate you taking the time, and good luck. Keep chasing it, dude, and keep doing it.
Okay, no worries, man. I appreciate you as well, and hopefully talk again.
Absolutely, man. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Told you, really good conversation with Chad Gunner Lail, former TNA wrestler, and once again, star of Navy SEALs vs. Zombies, which you can find right now, available on VOD, all digital platforms, as well as Blu-ray and DVD. Check it out, Navy SEALs vs. Zombies. It is exactly what you think it is. So if that interests you, by all means, go ahead and seek it out. So once again, thanks to Gunnar for joining us here on the show. And thanks to you for coming aboard and listening to this particular episode. I'm your host, Billy Donnelly, who once again you can find at thisisinfamous.com as well as joeblow.com. You can also find me on Twitter at infamouskid and on Facebook, facebook.com/BillyTheKid. Find us on Just the Worst Podcast on Twitter at JTW Podcast, as well as on Facebook, facebook.com/Just the Worst Podcast. And keep listening to the shows on SoundCloud. Website will be up within a couple of weeks. We are still working on it, still fine-tuning it. So once we get that up, you'll have your feeds set up for iTunes and Stitcher and all the like. In the meantime, though, SoundCloud, that's the way you keep listening. Once again, thank you very much for joining. Thanks to Chad, Gunnar, Lail for joining us here as well. And thanks to me for talking it and making it all happen. So I'm your host, Billy Donnelly. This has been Just the Worst Wrestling Podcast, episode number 6. We'll be back next week. I'm out. Peace. Just the Worst Wrestling Podcast, episode number 6, has been a presentation of Just the Worst Podcast